Good day, everyone. I'm Joanna Lalibo, and I'll be teaching you basic science. Our theme for today's class is You and Energy, and our topic is Forces, Part 1. At the end of our lesson today, you should be able to define force, explain the concept of force, and explain contact and non-contact forces. Force is usually used to describe the use of strength or compulsion in our day-to-day lives. For instance, if your parent had to make you wash the dishes after eating, it means that she compelled or forced you to do it. Or if you had to struggle to the front of a queue to buy ice cream, it could mean that you used your strength to force your way through the crowd. However, in science, force does not mean any of these things. It is rather used to describe motion, which means movement. Force is a push or pull effect on an object or on a person. When this push or pull effect stops, the force stops as well. Now, when there's force between two objects, there are certain changes that occur on that object. One of these changes is movement. When force is applied on an object, it causes the object to move. For instance, if it is pushed, the object moves. The force can cause the movement to be fast, or it could cause it to be slow. Or it can also cause the movement to stop. Now, another change that occurs is the change in the shape of the object. For instance, when a balloon, as seen in this photograph, is pressed, the shape changes. It changes from a circular form to a cylindrical form. Now, when a force is applied between two interacting objects, one or some of all these changes must occur. It is either it moves faster or slowly, or it stops movement, or the shape of the object changes. Now, the changes that will occur depends on the type, the amount, and direction of the force applied on the object. Now, force can simply be defined as a push or pull interaction, as I said earlier, on an object or on a body that causes a change in the shape, speed, or direction of that object. There are different things a force can do. One, it can change the shape of an object. We can see a can that has been squeezed. When force is applied, the shape of the can changes. Or a balloon, as we saw earlier on, when it is pressed, it loses its original shape and is now shaped in this form. A force can also cause a stationary object, that is an object that is not in motion, an object that is not moving. It can cause that object to move. Force can also change the speed of a body. It can cause it to move faster or slower. Force can also change the direction of a body or an object in motion. For instance, if an object was moving in this direction, when force is applied to the object from this area, it can move towards this direction, causing a change in the direction of the object. Force can also make a body or object in motion to stop. Now, force cannot be seen or touched. We cannot say how force looks like. It can only be felt or observed when it is applied on a body. For instance, when the shape of an object changes as it comes in contact with another object or body, we can observe that the force has been applied on the object. Using the balloon we saw earlier, when force is applied to that balloon, it changes the shape, and we can visibly observe that the shape of the balloon has changed. Now, the magnitude or the amount of force can be measured using a device called the force meter. The force meter contains a spring and a metal hook. This is what the force meter looks like. This is the metal hook, and this is the spring inside of the force meter. Now, this spring stretches when a force is applied to the metal hook. The greater the force applied, the longer the spring stretches and the higher the reading. Now, when an object is attached to this metal hook here, it causes this spring to lengthen. It increases the length of the spring. Depending on the amount of force exerted on the spring by the object which is attached to the metal hook, the spring stretches. So the greater the force, the longer the spring stretches and the higher the reading. Situations where forces can be applied include the following: pushing a table, Now, when a table is being pushed, as you can see in the diagram, we can say force is being applied from this person to the object. Another area where force can be seen is when pulling a bucket out of a well. When a bucket is being pulled up, we can observe that force is being applied. Now, another area we can see the application of force is when pushing a baby stroller. We can see this woman pushing this stroller. That is, force is being applied from the person to the object. Force can also be seen when paddling a canoe, as can be seen in this diagram here. Force can also be applied when two metallic objects come together. It can also be seen when we rub our palms together. And it can also be seen when pressing a plastic on one's palms. Now, there are different types of forces that can be applied to objects. They are applied force, normal force, tension force, spring force, air resistance force, frictional force, magnetic force, electrical force, and gravitational force. These forces, as we've listed earlier, can be divided into two broad categories, which are the contact and non-contact force. Contact forces. They are those forces that occur when there is a direct or physical interaction between two objects. For example, a man pushing a wheelbarrow or a man pulling a large brick. Contact force occurs when two objects are in direct contact or direct or physical contact. As we can see here, this person is in contact with the ball he's trying to push. We can say that is contact force. Or when a man is pushing a wheelbarrow, we can see that the man is in direct contact with the wheelbarrow. So that is called contact force. Some examples of contact force are normal force, tensional force, applied force, spring force, frictional force, and air resistance force. They are all examples of contact force. Non-contact forces are those forces that do not use or they do not require direct or physical contact to exert a push or pull interaction. These forces can occur between objects that are parts. That is why we call them non-contact force, because they don't have to be in direct or physical contact with each other for the force to be exerted. Another name for non-contact force is action at a distance force. That is, the two objects far apart from each other can still experience a force between them at a distance. Some examples of these forces are gravitational force, electrical force, and magnetic force. In summary, we have learned that a force is a push or pull interaction between two objects. We also learned that forces cannot be seen or touched. They can only be applied to an object in different ways. We also learned that force can change the shape of an object. It can change its direction and speed. And force can be classified into two categories, namely contact and non-contact forces, based on their interaction. We will take one question to see how well you have understood the lesson. In an object, force can cause the following changes, except A, direction, B, speed, C, color, D, shape. The correct answer is C. Force can change the direction of an object, it can change the speed, it can also change the shape, but it cannot change the color of the object. We have come to the end of the lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.